everyone and welcome. My name is Jeff and today we are going to look at the new spoilers for today from War of the Spark, and so many spoilers coming out so quick, and I am crazy excited for this. So it looks like we have some Jiang Yanggu cards right off the top, so going to dive into these ones to actually get the translations. Just so you know, the translations up top not always right, at least on this website, and it kind of makes my heart glow because it's just so fun. All right, but this is a legendary creature hound, not a wolf, unfortunately, because I feel like we need some more of those, but it makes sense. Vigilance trample. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on Mawu loyal champion, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So that's pretty cool. So if you just put one on it, you get two instead. That's not too shabby. If you get multiple times that it puts it on there, then it gets pretty big. So 4 mana, 3/3. I think that could be pretty good. Let's see what the command or what the planeswalker is doing here as well. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has tap to add 1 mana of any color. All right, so this is basically a Rishkar that's a planeswalker. So that's an ability that's always there, and then you can -2 put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So pretty awesome actually there. I think that this could definitely see some play just like Rishkar, but it actually has more sticks around even longer. So in the planeswalker, that's actually going to be very good. So I'm excited for Jiang Yanggu. All right, what's the next one? Get through all these non-translated one. Giant growth. I'm not sure if the name is actually right here, but instant target creature gets +3 until end of turn for 1 mana. Not bad. That actually is quite big. Doesn't give trample, but not too shabby at all. All right, Teferi's Time Twist. Exile target permanent you control. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. If it enters the battlefield as a creature, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. If it enters the battlefield as a creature, is kind of funky, but I guess that makes sense for certain things like the enchantment creatures or whatever. But yeah, I think that's really good. You get to save something for 2 mana, get to put a counter on it. With the Jiang Yanggu or whatever, that could be pretty good. It's instant speed, so I'm not sure if this is great. It's kind of like a Siren's Ruse where you can see it, but I feel like there's more things that are going to be prioritized before it. So could see play, and it's a good card, I think, that you can play into more budget-friendly decks. All right, next up, Cura's Dambreaker. 6 from mana cost. A Leviathan. So we have more Leviathans here. When Cura's Dambreaker enters the battlefield, proliferate. Great. Devrin's Shadow Fugue. Target player discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Not bad. Expensive. Good limited card. Davriel Rogue Shadow Mage. Another uncommon planeswalker. So 2 and a black. Davriel at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has one or fewer cards in hand, then it does 2 damage to them. So pretty cool. It kind of adds, like, I could see a good Raider's Wake deck here where, like, whenever they discard a card, you can also neg 1 to make them discard a card, so you get to do damage to them as they're discarding, and then if they don't have cards at the beginning of their upkeep, then you get to make them do damage as well. Because typically what you want to do whenever you're playing a discard deck, you run into the issue of people just want to not have cards at the end of their turn. But if they're going to take 2 from that, and they're having to top deck against losing 2 damage every turn, Ill-Gotten Inheritance could be really fun with this as well, just making them take so much damage and you're getting enough life that this could actually be a pretty fun deck, just a straight up discard deck, and actually be pretty powerful, and it has an actual finisher. So pretty cool. And then being able to flash and make them discard if ever we're worried that they might find the right thing could be really fun. So like now that we have the flash land to make sure that we can actually play discard on their turn, on their upkeep, gonna be pretty insane. So I do think that this has some play. Hey, Vivien, Champion of the Wilds, 3 convert mana cost. I'm loving the cheap planeswalkers that we have. I think that they had to do that with how many planeswalkers they have in the format, kind of taking the place of those like 3/2 creatures, stuff like that. And this is actually rare. So you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. Beautiful. That is 3 convert mana cost way to do that, especially now that we can tap anything with counters for mana. Gonna be pretty broken. Until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach. Not bad. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and put the rest into the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as it remains exiled, you may look at the card and you may cast it if it's a creature card. So look at the top 3, find a creature card. You can cast it whenever you want to. So you don't get to play it for free, anything like that. You don't necessarily put it into your hand either. So I think that's actually pretty good. because people don't get to look at it. They don't get to steal it from your hand. They don't get like the discard. It actually is a way to kind of get past the discard deck. So I think that actually does have some value there. All right, Vivien's Grizzly. So 3 creeper mana cost, Bear Spirit. So more bears, and it's not a 2/2 bear, it's a 2/3 bear. So spend 4 mana, 3 and a green. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card or a planeswalker card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put the card into your hand, put it into the bottom of your library. So you can actually choose. Put it into your hand. So if anything that you don't put into your hand, you put it to the bottom of the library. That's fine. Okay. Teio's Light Shield, 3 creeper mana cost. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It's a 0/3, not a defender, so that means that it doesn't work with a lot of the defender things. You can put it onto itself. So you can. It's a 3 mana 1/4. So it's a good blocker. I feel like that actually could have some versatility, at least in the limited play. That's the only real place I could see it, though. Because Sailor of Means is kind of that same type of thing, the 1/4, where it is a good blocker, but it gives the upside of actually being able to get treasure, which is fantastic. So I don't think it's going to see play in standard anytime soon, unless somehow it gets broken. I don't know. But Teio, the Shield Mage, 3 creeper mana cost, you have Hexproof. That's really good against mono red and everything like that. There's a few ways you can now have that ability. So you can have Shalai, you can have the Teio, and then another card that's coming up here pretty soon, the Wanderer, to at least stop yourself from taking damage from any burn spells. So can be pretty good. This just has hexproof altogether. So create a 0/3 white wall creature token with defender. So basically another shield here. Not bad. Vivien's Arcbow. This card is pretty insane. So I did go through some of these beforehand. All right, so Vivien's Arcbow, 1 and a green, legendary artifact, X and tap, discard a card. So a lot of things have to go onto this. You have to pay X, tap it, discard a card. Look at the top X cards of your library. You may put a creature card with converted mana costs X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So one fun thing about this too is that you could just not pay anything and just be able to discard. So if there are decks where you're just trying to get stuff out of your hand too, this is a way to actually do that. It is green, and I think it's kind of interesting that this is a green artifact, which makes it look a little bit different. I don't think I've seen too many colored artifacts at all, so pretty cool there. So yeah, look at the top X cards of your library. You may put a creature card with converted mana costs X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in the bottom of the library at random order. So this is an instant speed way to put a creature onto the battlefield, which, I mean, your other Vivien already gives you flash for all your creatures, but this is just kind of another way to make that happen. If you're just drawing into lands, need to find something, you get a look and find the thing that you need. So I think it's definitely going to see play. It's a fantastic card. Legendary, I think, is important there, so you can't do it multiple times if you're just playing like a bunch of 2-drops and stuff, but definitely good there. All right, so next up, we have some more cards that need to be translated here. So Ingrath's Wrath, a black and a red sorcery, choose one. Target player either sacrifices an artifact, sacrifices a creature, or sacrifices a planeswalker. For 2 mana, you get to choose one, and you can choose anything that they don't have multiples of and make them sacrifice it. And I do think that in this format, you know, there are going to be lots of planeswalkers and lots of creatures, so it's a pretty good chance you're going to at least get value out of this to kill. I mean, first off, kill something, but you're going to be, if you are always choosing planeswalkers, and anyway, I think this is definitely a card that you're going to run in any Rakdos deck. It is a little bit taxing on the colors, so you kind of need it to be a Rakdos deck, but not bad. You get to destroy artifacts, treasure maps, gone. It's not the right time for that as well. So I think it's a good card altogether. Not too shabby at all. Gideon's Triumph, 2 converted mana cost instant. Target opponent sacrifices a creature that attacked or blocked this turn. If you control a Gideon Planeswalker, that player sacrifices 2 of those creatures instead. So with a Gideon, this is great. Without a Gideon, it's kind of a worse silhouette because you don't get to choose which creature attacked. But in some ways it's better because it can also hit a Carnage Tyrant if only one creature is attacking. So I think that this could, sorry, I got a really itchy nose. Sorry about that. I think that this could be good in a deck that's like playing Baird Gideon, like kind of like a something that makes them not want to swing with too many creatures. You have decent blockers, and then I would play this over Silhouette at that point, but maybe not, you know, I don't know. It's an interesting one. You can also, this could be good too, or if you're not positive you want to kill it right away, I guess you can do the same thing with Sillaways. I'm not sure. This does get around Vigilance as well. So there's that. All right, Ingrath. Let's check out the name here. Again, don't trust the names too much yet. No fire, no steely eyes. That's a reference to Arena. No fire, no steel. Creatures you control have menace, which is actually pretty powerful. Very powerful, actually. Especially in Rakdos colors. That might be a little broken. And then you can neg 2 a mass and create a creature that's a 2/2. Okay. With menace. Yeah, so I mean that's actually pretty good. I think that'll definitely see play. A lot of these planeswalkers I feel like are really good one-ofs in decks where it's like, I would love to have this ability. I don't necessarily want to go crazy out and have like a bunch of 4 drops, but if I run into it, it's as good, you know, as playing some other stuff later on, you know. So I think the Ingrath is really powerful. All right, Cruel Celebrant. This is probably the most exciting card. There's a lot of really exciting cards, but Cruel Celebrant, 1 white, 1 black, vampire, 1/2. Whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker you control dies, or planeswalker, which is kind of cool, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So we finally have the cheap Aristocrat style card that will allow things to start going off crazy early game. And then because we have so many other ones in the format, this can actually get pretty crazy. If you do end up getting the other vampire, I think this is just a really good, I like that it's in vampires as well, because I think that this turns on our vampire deck because it creates so many tokens. There are a lot of ways to sacrifice as well. Oligarch I don't think is a vampire, but that's still, or the Impervious, whatever, the one that gets a sack for 1 mana. Anyway, this is definitely going to be good. We'll see what decks actually come out of it, but definitely going to see play. All right, Honor of the God Pharaoh, 2 and a red sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards, amass 1. So you discard, draw 2 cards, and you get to create a creature or put a counter onto a creature that's already there. I think this is actually really good. I mean, it's 1 mana more than like the 2 mana draw, discard a card, draw a card. To be able to amass as well. So first off, great, fantastic and limited. Good card draw. A lot of decks are actually trying to discard and draw stuff. And the fact that it creates a blocker while you're doing it, I think is actually worth substituting one of these over like the, I can't remember the name of the card right now. The Tormenting Voice, I think is what it is. And so I think that you maybe don't play like a full playset of this because it is more expensive, but you can substitute one over, playing a full playset because it is good. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Burning Prophet. It's whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Burning Prophet gets +1/+0 until end of turn, then Scry. So Scry 1. So not quite prowess, but not bad because it already has a bigger toughness. And so it actually could be decent, good and limited. I think the fact that it scries 1 as well could make it see some standard play in the right deck, but we'll see. Next up, we just have another Naga, 3/2. They need to at least get some of these into it, right? So there's that. Erratic Visionary. 2 convert mana costs, Human Wizard. Pay 2, tap it, draw a card, then discard a card. 1/3. I like that it has a better toughness than some of the other ones like this. So I mean, if you're just trying to draw cards, discard cards, this actually could go well in like the Jace deck that's trying to mill itself as well. So I mean, like that's a way to have blockers, draw cards, discard a card. You're getting you're just kind of filtering through more draws as well. Rising Populace. Whenever another creature or planeswalker you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Rising Populace. That could be really good in the decks that are trying to kill a lot of stuff, but it's just Alinda's so much better for that it's not really great. Wanderer's Strike, 5 mana costs, sorcery, exile target creature, then proliferate. Good limited removal. The Wanderer, 4 mana costs, prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. Exile target permanent with power 4 or greater for neg 2. I think this is okay. Again, this is another way that you can stop burn spells coming in at you. So I think that if you are playing that deck that's just kind of like a lock them out, this is a great card for another lock them out kind of effect, if mono red still is a huge thing in the format. So with that, pretty cool. You have hexproof from the other one. This one, make sure that they can't at least burn stuff at you, but you which is kind of similar almost. Anyway, so that's not bad. Samut, Tyrant Smasher. Creatures you control have haste. Great static effect, pretty much on an enchantment. You also get to buff them, so target creature gets +2/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. With the Scry 1, I feel like they realized that this wasn't a fantastic effect, so they added the Scry 1. I feel like they're doing that a lot here, or it's like, this isn't great. Scry 1 as well, why not? And that Scry 1 does add some value, but it's a little bit interesting. So I like Samut, where it's one of those, like, it could be very good in the right decks. It's just basically like an extra copy of Rhythm of the Wild. Like, so this could be like the 5th copy where you're giving the things haste that you need to, and you can pump it as though it had a counter on the turn that it came in. So it's like, that's not bad, but it's not necessarily amazing. So again, maybe a one of in certain decks. All right. Let's see here. Another, this is Samut. Sprint is just basically a copy of that ability there for 1 mana. Wheat Farmer Bolas. I love the names here. Okay, as long as it's your turn, Wheat Farmer Bolas has first strike, and you can pay 1 to sacrifice another creature, which that actually is pretty good, and it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So the fact that you can pay to sacrifice another creature actually almost makes this good. It brings it into the Mardu place to maybe do the it gives us something first off unlimited that can work with the cultists or whatever it was that can be a aristocrat style deck. And the fact that it has first strike means that you probably can get in for quite a bit of damage and maybe just play enough creatures to swing in and kill them. So there's some good stuff you can do here. All right, Teferi, the 3 converted mana cost Teferi, which is epic. Time Reveler. Each opponent can cast only any time. They can only cast spells only any time they would cast a sorcery. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. So amazing card already for 3 mana. It's not quite as epic as the other Teferi, but still epic. And then neg 3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, draw a card. So not a Teferi, so it's not any permanent, but you basically get the same tuck ability that you did with the other Teferi. So it cannot tuck itself, which is important, so it doesn't have that same loop with the other Teferi. But it is still powerful. You can definitely do a lot of damage to the opponent's side. Make sure that they can't respond to stuff really at all. And yeah, not too shabby at all. So I really like Time Teferi. It's going to see play. Keeps the control decks alive, unfortunately. All right, Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. 3 converted mana cost, 1 a green or a blue. And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, and you can neg 1 to untap target permanent. So this card would be kind of bad if it didn't have such a massive loyalty. Actually, I think that actually adds quite a bit of value. And the main thing is that this is if you're playing a more stompy deck, the biggest thing you're wanting, so this is basically like a Beast Whisperer that is harder to kill, is the way that I see it. It only works with creatures that are bigger. So you play it instead of a Beast Whisperer, I think, in the deck that plays a lot more bigger creatures, Gore Claws, whatever. And I think at that point, it's really good. And this is just whenever a creature enters the battlefield. So non-tokens work as well. If you have some other things going off that gets you bigger creatures that can enter the battlefield, maybe some ways to make them bounce and blink again. You can draw some more cards that way. Anyway, there are some things you can do with this that I think that make it more powerful than other stuff, because it's just whenever it enters the battlefield. So it does have more immediate value than it looks. And so that's my opinion. I do think this will see some play. I'm not sure exactly where yet, but it's better than a lot of people I've seen have been giving it credit for. So Karn's Bastion, amazing card. Colorless mana. There's a lot of these colorless lands, but pay 4, tap it, proliferate. Really, really good. If you guys don't know what proliferate is still, choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So if it's a planeswalker, give another loyalty counter. If it's, Jadelight Ranger, give another counter, +1/+1 counter. If they have neg1 counters, which we haven't seen any of those yet in the format, I don't think they're actually coming, then you could also give them neg1 counters or, something like that. Or even treasure map, you can put another counter onto treasure map and maybe flip it right away. So some pretty cool stuff you can do with Karn's Bastion. In fact, that actually would be really good to do with Karn, being able to tick up and do some fun stuff, create a big Karn. Anyway, there's some really fun stuff that you can do with this. All right, Dovin's Veto, amazing card here. Probably pretty insane. So white and a blue, this spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. you no longer have to worry about the stack with this one. You know, like if they are holding up mana to counter stuff, you just counter, you know, you're going to counter that thing. The only way that I think people get around this is in Modern, they have remand where they can remand back their own spell. Like that's the only real way I see that you can kind of get around it still in any format. I don't know Legacy really at all, but anyway, so Dovin's Veto, definitely awesome. Blue-white, not going to keep people off of playing this at all because people are already in blue-white for almost every control deck. You know, Esper, I mean, Dimir decks don't get to play it, but this might be a reason why they try to stay more Esper and actually maybe keep it not as consistent, which might actually help the format. So we'll see. I don't know. Arcbow Bolas, I think this is an older card reprinted. 2 mana cost wizard Merfolk. Whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest into the bottom of your library in any order. So I've been thinking about this card a little bit, and I think that this actually could be a way that Merfolk decks can actually find the sleep more consistently. Because I think that against a lot of the decks right now, if they find the sleep, they win with Merfolk. If they don't find it, then they're kind of in trouble. So I think that this actually could see you play as like a 2-of to try to find the sleep when they need to, or find some of those spells that they're playing in a more creature heavy deck, which is kind of an interesting one because you're going to whiff a little bit more often if it's just Merfolk. And then this also works just to find as a card draw to find sorceries and puts down a blocker. Although I don't think any control decks are really going to be running this over whatever they have already. So that's kind of where I see it being played, which is interesting. All right, up to the last 4 cards here. Liliana's Triumph. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. In Kaya, Bane of the Dead, 3 mana costs, multicolored, which is great. Your opponents and permanents your opponents control with hexproof can be targets of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof. Is that big enough to have it see play? Also, you can -3 to exile target creature. I think that this is actually pretty powerful. I think it's pretty cool. The way that I'm seeing it, it's like a Profane Procession. So Profane Procession has seen play here and there in some decks as like a 1 or 2 of, where it was, you know, you pay it for 3, you have to pay 5 to finally exile something. But you get some extra value of being able to exile something anytime you want to, or it was instant speed, which was really valuable. I can kind of see this like that, where it's like you have it in the sideboard against decks that have hexproof, which I think there are going to be more hexproof creatures here in this format. And you can just exile target creature, get some value there. Anyway, so I think this can see play. I'm not sure if it's going to be top tier, but I could see it being top tier depending on what the meta is. So that's my thoughts. I didn't actually give full, I didn't actually dive into Liliana's Triumph here. I'll go quick though. So you can, each opponent sacrifices a creature. First off, it's each opponent, which is really good in Commander. So I think it's going to see play at least in Commander. If you have a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. I think that adds a little bit more value to where this could see play in Standard. Just the fact that if you are playing a Liliana's deck, you might want to bring this in because there's so many ways to make people sacrifice creatures right now that you really don't take the loss as much as you did before, except against a straight up tokens deck. So if that's in the meta, maybe it comes out, but if it's not in the meta, this is, well, I think we'll actually see play quite a bit. All right, Kaya's Ghost Form. 1 enchanted creature or planeswalker you control. When an enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. I think this is really good. You can put it onto anything, and even if it dies or gets exiled, you get to put it back on the battlefield. This means even if you negative and kill it, it gets to come back. So you can actually have a way to bring back your Liliana or something like that is kind of taking over the game. So I think this is actually really powerful. And you put it on creatures as well, which is really good. Auras, I think this is actually really good with the Val deck that has always had issues with staying on the battlefield at all. So, I mean, maybe a Val deck can come back because of this as well. And you can just play a bunch of those kinds of things to make sure it keeps coming back. I don't know. Crush Descent, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, amass 2. I think this could see play in the decks that are trying to amass, just because you can play this on their turn, and then if you have the ability to do the big X amass spell, then it already has the ability to attack, and you don't have to wait a turn for it to attack. So for that one reason, I could see this seeing play. Anything else? Absolutely not. I mean, it's just a little too expensive for everything. I don't know, maybe. 4 mana to counter a spell, though, is pretty rough. Anyway, that is it for today. Let me refresh just to make sure, because sometimes as I'm going through this, there's all of a sudden like 3 or 4 more cards come out. Nothing this time. All right, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, put down in the comments below what your favorite card is right now. Is Teferi just broken? What's your favorite planeswalker so far that's been spoiled? Is Vivien's Arkbow insane enough to really just kind of go to be insane here? And yeah, let me know your thoughts. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, and bye-bye.